Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to jump into a total classic. We're going full 80s today with Night of the Comet.
Awesome. I love this movie.
So, quick rundown for anyone who hasn't seen it. A comet passes by Earth. But instead of just a cool light show, it kind of wipes out most of humanity.
Turns them to dust. It's wild.
Yep, just piles of red dust everywhere. But of course, some people survive, and that's where our story kicks in.
Exactly. And we meet these two sisters, Reggie and Sam, who are totally rad and ready to take on this crazy new world.
Oh, for sure. They're like the ultimate 80s heroines. But what's so cool about this whole premise is that what if feeling it taps into. Like, what if this actually happened?
Totally. It plays on that fear we all have, looking up at the sky, seeing those comets and thinking, what if?
It could happen to any of us at any time. So back to Reggie and Sam. What do you think makes them such awesome characters?
Well, first off, they're not just victims, They're not waiting around for someone to rescue them.
Yeah. They're taking charge, figuring things out, and kicking some serious butt along the way.
Exactly. Reggie's like this tough, take-no-prisoners kind of girl.
Yeah.
The cool older sister with the amazing red jacket.
Oh, that jacket is iconic. Total 80s fashion goals for sure.
And Sam, the younger sister, she's a little more naive, but just as resourceful in her own way.
Totally. They balance each other out so well. It's like that classic sibling dynamic,
Mhm.
Bickering one minute, having each other's backs the next.
Exactly. And that dynamic is what makes them so relatable. They're not perfect, they make mistakes, but they always have each other.
Speaking of 80s vibes, this movie is like a time capsule of that era. The music, the fashion, the arcades, it's all there.
I know. It's like stepping back in time, even the way they talk. It's so 80s.
I can practically hear the synthesizers just thinking about it. But do you think the movie's appeal is tied to that 80s nostalgia, or could it be updated for a modern audience?
That's a good question. I think some of the charm would definitely be lost if you took away that 80s aesthetic.
Right. It's like part of the movie's DNA.
But the core themes like survival, family, and facing the unknown, those are timeless.
Totally agree. Now we got to talk about the mutants. I mean, they're not your typical slow-moving zombies, right?
No, these guys are fast, creepy, and they seem to have some level of intelligence.
Yeah, it's like they know what they're doing, which makes them even scarier.
Did you know the movie was actually originally planned as a straight-up zombie flick?
Really? That's interesting. So what do you think changed?
I think they wanted to do something different, something more unsettling, and it works.
Yeah.
These mutants are like this eerie echo of what humanity used to be.
Right. And the fact that they're not mindless, that they seem to retain some memories or thoughts, that's super creepy.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's really going on inside their heads.
Okay, so let's move on to the setting. The whole movie takes place in an abandoned shopping mall. It's so 80s, right?
Absolutely. Malls were like the center of the universe back then. So it makes sense that our heroes would end up there.
Right. It's not just a place to scavenge for supplies. It becomes their home, their fortress, their playground.
Exactly. They turn it into their own little post-apocalyptic kingdom.
And it's filled with everything they could possibly need. Clothes, food, entertainment. It's like the ultimate survivalist's dream.
Minus the mutants, of course.
Yeah, definitely minus the mutants. But it makes you wonder, if you were in that situation, what would be the first thing you'd do in an empty mall?
Ooh, tough question. Maybe hit up the food court. I'd be craving some junk food after all that apocalypse stuff.
Good choice. Or maybe the arcade. Imagine having all those games to yourself.
True. No quarters required.
Right.
But I think before all that, I'd probably grab some practical stuff. Like weapons, supplies, maybe some comfy shoes for all that running from mutants.
Smart. Got to be prepared. But it's fun to think about, right? Like how we'd actually react in that kind of situation.
Totally. It makes you appreciate the little things, like having food and shelter, and not having to worry about glowing-eyed mutants chasing you down the mall corridors.
Speaking of which, we haven't even touched on the whole military aspect of the film yet. That's a whole other layer of complexity, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We'll definitely have to delve into that. Because it's not just about surviving the comet and the mutants.
Right. It's about navigating the power structures that emerge even in the aftermath of a global catastrophe.
It's a classic struggle between those who want control and those who want freedom.
And it's a theme that's definitely relevant today, even without the whole apocalypse thing.
Absolutely. Night of the Comet has a lot to say about human nature, about how we react to crisis, and about the choices we make when everything's on the line.
Well said. And it does all that while still being a fun, entertaining, and totally 80s ride.
Exactly. It's a perfect blend of action, humor, and social commentary. And did I mention the awesome 80s soundtrack?
Seriously, the music is like its own character in the movie.
So, yeah, we've only scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore.
So buckle up, everyone. This deep dive is just getting started. All right, so we've talked about Reggie and Sam, those awesome mutant fighting sisters, and that totally rad mall they've claimed as their own.
Yeah, it's like their own personal fortress of 80s goodness.
But let's not forget, not everyone turned to dust after the comet, right? There are other survivors out there, and not all of them are as cool as our heroines.
Oh, for sure. He's got a whole spectrum of humanity left, even after the apocalypse. Some good, some bad, and some just plain weird.
Like, remember those scientists, the ones who are trying to figure out what happened, how to fix things, maybe even find a cure?
Right. They're like this last bastion of scientific hope in a world gone mad.
But their methods are kind of questionable, right? I mean, they're experimenting on people, trying to unlock the secrets of immunity.
It's a tricky situation. On one hand, they represent the potential for a solution, a way to rebuild society.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they're crossing some serious ethical lines.
Totally. It makes you think about the lengths we'd go to in a crisis, right? Would we sacrifice our morals for the sake of survival?
It's a question that Night of the Comet really forces you to confront. And there are no easy answers.
Especially when you consider that the military is also in the mix, trying to exert control and exploit the situation for their own gain.
It's like even after an apocalyptic event that wipes out most of humanity, those old power structures still try to reassert themselves.
It's like, can't we all just get along and rebuild society without resorting to the same old power grabs?
Right. It's a commentary on human nature, I think. How even in the face of extinction, we still struggle with control and dominance.
And it creates this really interesting tension in the film. You've got Reggie and Sam, who represent this individualistic, rebellious spirit. And then you've got the military and the scientists who embody those larger institutional forces.
It's like a classic showdown between freedom and control.
And let's be honest, the action sequences when those forces collide are pure 80s awesomeness. Lasers, explosions, and some seriously cool stunts.
It's a visual treat for sure. And those scenes really highlight Reggie and Sam's resourcefulness. They use their wits, their environment, and even their knowledge of 80s pop culture to outsmart their enemies.
Like, remember when they used those mall security cameras to track the military's movements? Genius.
Totally.
Yeah.
They turn that mall into their own strategic battleground.
It's almost like a video game come to life. And I think it taps into that fantasy we all have, you know, of being able to survive and thrive in a chaotic world.
Absolutely. It's empowering to see these two young women take charge and fight for their survival.
Speaking of empowerment, the ending of Night of the Comet is pretty hopeful, wouldn't you say? But it's not all sunshine and rainbows either.
Right. It leaves you with this sense of cautious optimism. Like, yeah, humanity might have a chance, but it's not going to be easy.
And there's still that question of whether they can truly overcome the threat of the mutants, or if this is just a temporary reprieve.
It's that ambiguity that makes the ending so powerful. It doesn't tie everything up neatly. It leaves you with questions, with things to ponder long after the credits roll.
Totally. Like, can humanity learn from its mistakes and build a better future? Or are we doomed to repeat the same cycles of conflict and destruction?
Big questions, right? But that's what good science fiction does. It makes us think about the world around us, about our own place in it, and about the choices we make.
Exactly. Night of the Comet might be a fun 80s-tastic ride, but it also has some serious depth to it.
It's a film that works on multiple levels. It's entertaining, it's nostalgic, and it's thought-provoking. And that's what makes it such a cult classic.
And it's a testament to the power of storytelling, right? How a film like this can capture our imaginations, make us laugh, and make us think, all at the same time.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always room for hope, for resilience, and for a little bit of fun.
Well said. But let's not get too deep just yet. We're not done with Night of the Comet. There's still so much more to explore, to analyze, and to appreciate.
Oh yeah, we've only just scratched the surface. There are layers upon layers to unpack here.
So stay tuned, everyone. This deep dive is about to get even more cosmic. All right, we're back, ready to finish up our deep dive into Night of the Comet.
Yep, let's do it.
So we've covered a lot of ground, you know, from those killer mutants to the whole mall's a fortress thing. But there's one element we haven't really dug into yet.
And that is?
The amazing female leads, Reggie and Sam. I mean, they're not your typical damsels in distress, are they?
No way. They're the heroes of this story. They're smart, tough, and they totally rock those 80s outfits while battling, like, apocalyptic chaos.
Seriously, Reggie's red jacket, iconic. But it's not just about the looks, right? They're
Yeah.
both so resourceful and quick thinking.
Yeah, they're constantly adapting, figuring out how to use their surroundings to their advantage.
Like that whole scene with the security cameras, turning the mall into their own surveillance system, genius.
Totally. And they're not afraid to get their hands dirty, whether it's fixing a car, shooting lasers, or outsmarting the military.
They're the ones who drive the plot, make the tough choices, and ultimately save the day.
Exactly. They're the definition of strong female characters.
Hmm?
And their relationship as sisters is just as important as their individual strengths.
Absolutely. They bicker, they tease each other, but at the end of the day, they've got each other's backs no matter what.
And that bond, that sense of family, it's what gives them the strength to keep going, even when things look bleak.
You know, it's interesting because, like, this movie came out in the 80s, a time when, let's be honest, female characters in action movies weren't always given the same depth or agency as their male counterparts.
True. But Night of the Comet totally flips the script. Reggie and Sam are the ones calling the shots, making the plans, and taking charge.
They're not waiting for some dude to come and rescue them. They're saving themselves and each other.
And they're doing it with style, humor, and a whole lot of heart.
Exactly. They're not just action heroes. They're fully realized characters. They have flaws, they make mistakes, but they learn and grow throughout the film.
And their journey is something that I think a lot of people can relate to, even today. It's about finding your inner strength, embracing change, and figuring out who you are in the face of adversity.
So well said. It makes you think about how you'd react in a similar situation, right? Would you have the same courage and resourcefulness as Reggie and Sam?
Tough question. I'd like to think so, but who knows?
It's fun to imagine, though, right? Like, what skills would you tap into? What would be your go-to survival strategy?
I'd probably be hitting the library, trying to find some books on wilderness survival and maybe some self-defense techniques.
Smart. Knowledge is power, especially in an apocalypse. But let's be real. I'd probably also be raiding the music store, like you said earlier. Gotta have a good soundtrack for the end of the world.
Absolutely. Music is essential. But yeah, Night of the Comet really gets you thinking about these bigger questions, like what makes us human? What do we value? And how do we find hope in the face of the unknown?
Exactly. It's a film that works on so many levels. It's entertaining, it's nostalgic, and it's surprisingly thought-provoking.
It's a reminder that even when the world seems like it's falling apart, there's still beauty, there's still connection, and there's still a reason to fight for a better future.
So well said, and I think that's a perfect note to end on. Night of the Comet is more than just a cult classic. It's a testament to the power of hope, the importance of human connection, and the strength of the human spirit.
Couldn't agree more.
So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's a wild ride through 80s nostalgia with some genuinely creepy moments and a lot of heart.
It's a movie that'll make you laugh, make you think, and maybe even inspire you to rock a red jacket and take on the world.
And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Night of the Comet.
It's been a blast.
We hope you enjoyed it. And remember, even in the face of apocalypse, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring the world around us.